Okay. I've tried doing this a few times. Let's see if this works. I'm trying to make a video about dreams because I've often felt that dreams have some connection to how I perceive video games, how I analyze video games, so I thought this might be useful for this channel. I'm not sure if it will be. It's kind of an experiment to branch out into dream territory. The thing is, so when I was younger, I kept a dream journal, and it was like an important thing that I did. And during that time up until now, something that has stayed consistent or that somehow seems important to me is the relationship between the body, our body, and the dream. And this is something that, Freud talks about. So you could be sleeping or something. Okay, useless drawing. But you could be sleeping, and if you hear a loud bell outside, it might affect how you're dreaming. The final, let's say the final sections, of your dream might be influenced by that sound. The way I want to connect this to what I'm talking about now is, how is your body, therefore, and the sensations you're having in the body, the sensation of, for example, the stress caused by the bell, how does it affect the images that are being portrayed in your dream? And a thing that has often caught my eye that I want to try and focus on here, see if I can, is that I feel like there is a location in space where your body gets sort of mapped onto a location in space in the image. I'll see if I can try and explain this. So imagine you're sort of visualizing a landscape. I don't know. And there's a little path here. There's some trees, excuse me, as I try to draw, and whatever, the sun and some clouds and a little animal here or something. You have closed your eyes and you're visualizing this scene. It could be a dream or it could just be a waking life sort of image, but I mean one that you see with your eyes closed. So something you're visualizing in your mind's eye, right? You close your eyes and you imagine a landscape sort of thing, where you find yourself in the middle of that landscape. In a way, you find yourself as if you were here, kind of. But at the same time, I would argue, you're also sort of this switching doesn't work very well. You're also in front of the landscape. So the landscape is also simply an image, a screen, so to speak, that's in front of you. At least, okay, that's how I experience it. So maybe I'll focus on that. I experience it this way. I wonder if other people experience it this way. So it's a sort of like a screen. Whenever you visualize something with your eyes closed, it's sort of like you're looking at an image in the screen. It's slightly more enveloping. It's slightly more 360 degrees 3D, because you kind of feel as if you're inside of that image, depending on how you visualize things. But there is a similarity to screens, I feel, and flat surfaces. Okay, this screen size is a little too small, but it's okay. I'll try to stay in this setup for a while. This thing then, you've got this body in front of an image, and Freud mentions these examples, for example, of you hear in your bedroom a telephone ring or bells ringing in the church outside or something like that, and in the last instances of your dream, something happens that mimics that, like the birds start shouting really like unnaturally loud, like robots, and you wake up and there's, the telephone's ringing or something. Or yeah, like there's someone shouting at you, some loud noise happens in the dream, and you wake up, it's some loud noise outside, the TV was on or something. And of course, common examples could be temperature. You're way too hot. You've got too many blankets on, it's really hot, and you start dreaming that the sky turns red or something, and everything's just boiling hot in the dream, and you wake up and you're just sweating, getting a fever in bed. So these examples we understand, I think, but they are external examples. So a sound from outside, even the heat is coming from outside, in that it's your blankets, it's the temperature of the room. I am more interested in internal bodily feelings that are more mundane and constant, so to speak. Like if you're a person who constantly has shoulders tensed up, or if you're someone who generally always has lower back tension, or other variations on that theme. I'm intrigued by how so my thesis is this, for example. I have a feeling, in my case, that the screen of the dream or the visualization tends to mimic the proportions of my body. So that if I have some tension on my lower, the camera's mirrored here, but if I have some tension on my lower left abdomen in real life, in the dream, there might appear something. This tree might be like a little crooked or something, or if my chest begins to tighten in front of me, it doesn't necessarily have to happen in front of me. There could be some simultaneous impending kind of doom feeling around me. In a way, I say dreams, but I could backtrack. I think that this is more noticeable if you're awake, perhaps. It could also happen in dreams where you're visualizing something, because then you can simultaneously stay aware of your body and of the images. But in dreams, I think it happens as well. So again, this is something I don't have the language to talk about. I don't think I've ever tried to put this into words. So I'm struggling a little bit. But I feel like then, for example, if you, let's see if I can select the whole of this. Damn it. Let's see if I can select the whole of this and delete it. Imagine that the scene in front of you is, you have some body feelings in the top of your body, in your head or something, like some sort of tension around there. It could vary from person to person, so I don't think there's a one-to-one table, where you could say, oh, tension in the top of the head equals whatever, imagining a huge big tower or something. That's not exactly it. It's more that whoever you are and whatever your relationship to your body is, I wonder if there could be some universality, at least, to the fact that you can map certain things you're feeling in your body with certain things that are happening in the dream. Again, imagine you start feeling a lot of anxiety and your stomach starts tensing, and you imagine that a big gaping sort of hole opens up in the landscape in front of you, and as you're looking at this image, so to speak, could there be, hypothetically, a relationship between the opening up of some lower level element in the frame, if this is the top of the frame, this is the bottom of the frame, some lower level element connected with some low level thing happening in your body? And this is not universal at all. I mean, I have experienced the opposite in a way, like I said before, some tensing in the chest or something, equivalent with, I don't know, you dream that suddenly a bunch of birds start flying down from the sky or something. And that downward movement can equate with the pressure of something happening in your chest or in some part of your body that isn't, strictly speaking, the top of your head. So it could have other relationships. This may seem a little stupid to video game analysis. I'm not sure how to relate it exactly, but I feel like our relationship to images, hypothetically, at least I want to open that possibility, is related to body feelings. And of course, by body feelings, I include things like emotions and thoughts as well. Because, you could be thinking about something in a way that generates or is, causally linked with some emotion, which in turn you'd tend to experience in a certain part of your body. So a thought, an emotion, a physical sensation could be linked in that way, where it's hard to tell what that link is, but there could be a way in which no thought is devoid of some physical expression, and no physical feeling is devoid of some emotion, which in turn is not devoid of some thought. So there could be some triangulation there happening. And my feeling is, in the same way that Freud talks about these big physical changes, you feel really hot because the room is hot, you feel really cold because the room is cold, and the way that affects images that are visualized in your mind's eye, so a dream, for example, that there could be some way in which mundane changes of body feeling, not a really hot room or a really cold room changing your body, but again, a slight tension in the shoulders, a very slight, not even painful, not even pleasurable, very mundane, normal fluctuations of body feeling, slight tension of the abdomen, slight tension of the shoulders, slight tension of the chest, slight tension of the legs. The way in which, let's say, your body can sort of shift its tension from side to side. Your body is never sort of fully static in a way, right? So tension's constantly kind of fluctuating around it. And that tension may be connected with higher order structures such as ideas and feelings. And so, I guess the feeling I've had often is that, imagine as an artist, even. Imagine you have a phase as an artist where you're obsessed with drawing this big hot sun on the right side of your canvases. And then, just drawing landscapes, whatever. And there's always these things happening and cracks on the ground. So imagine you have a tendency to place the sun on the right side. My feeling is, could that be connected to you having a tendency to place the sun or big hot objects of that kind on the right side of the canvas, even when you dream, even when you visualize things? I have found in my case, for example, that when I used to keep a dream journal, I don't anymore. I will often, at the moment when you remember the dream vividly, the dream can be a three-dimensional space. So if I dream the sun is there, I could hypothetically walk around and look at it the other way so that it's to my left, right? But the memory I have of it when I dream of it is of having had the camera placed in front of it, let's say. And if I consistently have memories of dreams in which certain things are placed in certain quadrants of the frame, I often have a feeling that that constant placing in different quadrants could relate to body feelings that I regularly feel. Like maybe I regularly feel a certain fear that I express in a tensing of a certain side of my body or a certain upper or lower quadrant, right? So lower tensing of the lower body could be connected to a certain type of thoughts, and tensing of the upper body could be connected to another sort of thoughts. And that therefore both, what you experience in dreams and just general visualizations could translate into how you perform art as an artist, where you draw things and what type of objects you draw and what sort of relationships they have with one another. So like I said, maybe as a change in your thoughts, in your emotions happens, the trees in your visualization start to wilt, or something happens to them where they transform, or something, an opening up in your, in your body, some sort of opening up in your feelings could refer to an opening up in the image that is always placed in the same place, in the center, so to speak. Or, something that I think happened to me a lot in dreams was, I can't remember exactly where it was placed, but having a feeling that I was looking at like a door that was to the left. So that it didn't matter what kind of door. It could be different in every single dream, in every single visualization, but a sort of a predominance of doors being placed to the left of my central visual field. Whatever you make of that. And therefore, that if I were to draw a lot of art, maybe I would constantly, maybe I wouldn't necessarily place doors on the left, but that maybe the way in which I place images on the canvas, if there is some pattern to that placement, could have something to do with a type of body, thought, emotion, sort of hookup kind of thing, the way these things are connected. And so therefore, if you're playing video games, so to speak, if you're watching any kind of art, I guess a further question you could ask is, if I feel attracted to a certain type of art that constantly places things in certain relationships to one another, in certain types of iconic pictorial relationships to one another. If I'm, drawn to those things, could it be, amongst a million other things, that I perceive in those images the type of image that I, reflect with when I close my eyes, so to speak? That it's sort of hard to put in words, but that that perhaps my bodily feelings are being reflected by that image on the screen. That image on the screen is a really good fit for whatever it is that I am feeling bodily, emotionally, thoughtfully, as the canvas expresses itself in front of me, right? I have a monkey on a tree. And of course, video games, 3D video games, for example, you can place the camera in a lot of different positions. So this maybe only relates to a specific kind of relationship between objects, right? For example, again, placing monkey next to tree, which is a common enough kind of image, but other kinds of images that maybe the way that, for example, when you, in the Freudian example, you hear sound outside your window, and in the dream there's a big screeching of birds, right? Imagine that you commonly interpret outside sounds as birds. You have a tendency to place birds in the place of outside sounds. Maybe you have a tendency to place monkeys grabbing onto trees as an image of tension in a certain part of your body, regardless of where it's placed. So there could be an aspect of this that's not so symmetrical and based on the canvas, but that could also have a canvas localization aspect to it. So anyway, to round things off, right? That's my question, right? Are you drawn to certain types of art, amongst the million other reasons, of course, that you could be drawn to different kinds of art? And this is not a universal thing at all. It's more of a question that I felt applies to me. I'm trying to explore this, see what relevance it could have to image analysis. Blah blah blah. Right? Art is a complicated thing that no one person can say sort of everything about, obviously. But I wonder if maybe then you could be drawn to images that echo your inner states in the way that you echo them for yourself. So maybe for yourself, in your inner world, you tend to imagine birds descending all over you whenever you feel a certain type of tension. And seeing that image is like comforting. Even if it's a violent image, it speaks to you, it means something to you, it's something meaningful, it reflects something about your experience, about your life. You relate to it in some way, right? And that perhaps when you see video games about monkeys grabbing onto trees or something, or plumbers jumping and attacking dragons, something about that configuration of images is so similar, perhaps, right, to images. It doesn't have to be plumbers or dragons. You can have all sorts of other images, but that maybe your type of images that you tend to see inside of yourself when you close your eyes, when you dream, when you imagine all sorts of things, could be reflected in the sorts of artworks that you are drawn to as a person. Does that make any sense? I'm not really sure. So, yeah, those are my thoughts for now. I haven't used the whiteboard at all. Thanks for listening. Okay, bye.